So I am going to quickly, as I can, get a background screen on my green screen here. I don't know why, I just like playing with that. It's a new toy for me, okay? Give me a break. Okay. All right. See if you can guess where this background is, by the way. I love playing that game too. All right, so welcome. So I'm Brian. This is a Bible study. We're just going through the whole Bible, really. And we're up to Job. We started at Genesis and we just take it chapter by chapter and day by day. And I've been gone for the last couple of weeks because I've been preparing to do a film. To do a scene, to do a shoot, a couple days, first and second coming up. So anyway, I was really missing doing this and really just feeling like I need to just take a break. I haven't even been going to the gym, and partly because also I got hit by the car, so on my bike, so I haven't really been able to do much physically. And I've been going to therapy, so it's like, oh man, all kinds of things get in the way. Devil's trying to keep me from doing this, but it's not going to happen. So I'm back today, and yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to do a few chapters today because they're very short, and let's pray. All right, dear Lord, please add wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to the reading of this word. Help it to bless our lives to better do your will. Uh, and I also pray, Lord, if anyone is watching today or will watch this later and there's something weighing on their heart and their mind and they're stressed out about something, there's something going on, I pray you would give them the desire to reach out to you, to call on you, and give that problem up to you and surrender it to you so that they can have peace and you can bless them and give them guidance on whatever it is they need help with, Lord. And I pray for anyone who's got any sort of physical injuries right now. I just pray for healing. I pray for peace and joy. All the fruits of the Spirit, Lord, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. So I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. And if you have any prayer requests, feel free to put those in the comments, or you can, you know, yeah, just put them in the comments, and we'll talk about them. If you haven't subscribed, I appreciate that help because we're trying to get to 1,000 here, and then I'm going to shut up about it because I hate asking about that. But in any case, thanks for joining. And oops, got someone calling. All right, and so I'm back. We've got Alpha Plays. Hello, Alpha Plays and King something. I don't know. I wear these glasses, by the way, because I have very light sensitive eyes. So if you're just curious why I look like Morpheus, no, I'm not actually Morpheus. I'm just a normal guy. All right, we got Sonia. Hello, Sonia. Blessings to all. Peace to you. So we're on Job, and we're on chapter 2. So let's get started. Thank you for liking, King Kirash. Sorry. All right. So Job's second test. Excuse me. One day the angels came again to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan, the accuser, was with them. Where have you come from? The Lord asked Satan. And Satan answered the Lord, I have been going back and forth across the earth, watching everything that's going on. Then the Lord asked Satan, have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man on all the earth, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and will have nothing to do with evil. And he has maintained his integrity, even though you persuaded me to harm him without cause. Excuse me, my voice is a little... All right. Satan replied to the Lord, skin for skin. He blesses you only because you bless him. A man will give up everything he has to save his life, but take away his health, and he will surely curse you to your face. All right, Do with him as you please, the Lord said to Satan, but spare his life. So Satan left the Lord's presence, and he struck Job with a terrible case of boils from head to foot. Then Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die." But Job replied, "You talk like a godless woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad?" So in all this, Job said nothing wrong. Job's verse 11. Job's three friends share his anguish. Three of Job's friends were Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. When they heard of the tragedy he had suffered, they got together and traveled from their homes to comfort and console him. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognized him. Wailing loudly, they tore their robes and threw dust into the air over their heads to demonstrate their grief. Then they sat on the ground with him for, turn the page, 7 days and nights. And no one said a word, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words. Wow. Chapter 3. Job's first speech. At last Job spoke, and he cursed the day of his birth. He said, "Cursed be the day of my birth, and cursed be the night when I was conceived. Let that day turn into darkness. Let it be lost even to God on high, and let it be shrouded in darkness. Yes, let the darkness and utter gloom claim it for its own. Let a black cloud overshadow it, and let the darkness terrify it. Let that night be blotted off the calendar, never again to be counted among the days of the year, never again to appear among the months. Let that night be barren, let it have no joy. Let those who are expert at cursing, those who are ready to rouse the sea monster, curse that day. Let its morning stars remain dark. Let it hope for light, but in vain. May it never see the morning light. Curse it for its failures, to shut my mother's womb, for letting me be born to all this trouble. Why didn't I die at birth as I came from the womb? Why did my mother let me live? Why did she nurse me at her breasts? For if I had died at birth, I would be at peace now, asleep and at rest. I would rest with the world's kings and prime ministers, famous for their great construction projects. I would rest with wealthy princes whose palaces were filled with gold and silver. Why was I not buried like a stillborn child, like a baby who never lives to see the light? For in death the wicked cease from troubling, and the weary are at rest. Even prisoners are at ease in death, with no guards to curse them. Rich and poor are there alike, and the slave is free from his master. Sorry, my voice is acting up today. Verse 20. Oh, why should light be given to the weary, and life to those in misery? They long for death, and it won't come. They search for death more eagerly than for hidden treasure. It is a blessed relief when they finally die, when they find the grave. Why is life given to those with no future, those destined by God to live in distress? These are the questions people ask, right? Verse 24. I cannot eat for sighing. My groans pour out like water. What I always feared has happened to me. What I dreaded has come to be. I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest. Instead, only trouble comes. Chapter 4. Eliphaz's first response to Job. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied to Job, "Will you be patient and let me say a word? For who could keep from speaking out? In the past you have encouraged many a troubled soul to trust in God. You hold on. You have supported those who were weak. Your words have strengthened the fallen. You steadied those who wavered. But now, when trouble strikes, you faint and are broken. Does your reverence for God give you no confidence? Hold on. Shouldn't you believe that God will care for you or care for those who are upright? Stop and think. Does the innocent person perish? When has the upright person been destroyed? My experience shows that those who plant trouble and cultivate evil will harvest the same. They perish by a breath from God. They vanish in a blast of his anger. Though they are fierce young lions, they will all be broken and destroyed. The fierce lion will starve, and the cubs of the lioness will be scattered. This truth was given me. This truth was given me in secret. Seems like bad English there. Anyway, this truth was given me in secret, as though whispered in my ear. It came in a vision at night as others slept. Fear gripped me. I trembled and shook with terror. A spirit swept past my face. Its wind sent shivers up my spine. It stopped, but I couldn't see its shape. There was a form before my eyes, and a hushed voice said, "Can a mortal be just and upright before God? Can a person be pure before the Creator? If God cannot trust his own angels and has charged some of them with folly, how much less will he trust those made of clay? Their foundation is dust, and they are crushed as easily as moths. They are alive in the morning, but by evening they are dead, gone forever without a trace. Their tent collapses, they die in ignorance." Good stuff, right? I don't know about you, but this stuff is powerful. All right, we got some comments real quick before I forget. Okay, what reading? We're reading Job, and I just finished chapter 4, so now we finish up with chapter 5. What job, what, what Job you do? Okay. All right, so chapter 5. Eliphaz's response continues. So remember, this is now his friend talking. You may cry for help, but no one listens. You may turn to the angels, but they give you no help. Every time I pause here, I'm just making notes. So you make notes too, right? Because when I'm done here, then if you have questions or comments, then we talk about it. All right. Verse 2, surely resentment destroys the fool, and jealousy kills the simple. From my experience, I know that fools who turn from God may be successful for a moment, but then comes sudden disaster. Their children are abandoned far from help, with no one to defend them. Their harvests are stolen, and their wealth satisfies the thirst of many others, not themselves. But evil does not spring from the soil, and trouble does not sprout from the earth. Oh, wow. I was just thinking about that the other day. People are born for trouble as predictably as sparks fly upward from a fire. My advice to you is this: go to God and present your case to him, for he does great works too marvelous to understand. He performs miracles without number. He gives rain for the earth. He sends water for the fields. He gives prosperity to the poor and humble, and takes sufferers to safety. He frustrates the plans of the crafty. Hold on, I gotta make a note. He frustrates the plans of the crafty, so their efforts will not succeed. He catches those who think they are wise in their own cleverness, so that their cunning schemes are thwarted. They grope in the daylight as though they were blind. They see no better in the daytime than at night. He rescues the poor from the cutting words of the strong. He saves them from the clutches of the powerful. And so at last the poor have hope, and the fangs of the wicked are broken. But consider the joy of those corrected by God. Do not despise the chastening of the Almighty when you sin. For those for though he wounds and also bandages, he strikes, but his hands also heal. He will rescue you again and again, so that no evil can touch you. He will save you from death in time of famine, from the power of the sword in time of war. You will be safe from slander when you have no fear of destruction, and no, you will be safe from slander and will have no fear of destruction when it comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine. Wild animals will not terrify you. You will be at peace with the stones of the field, and its wild animals will be at peace with you. You will know that your home is kept safe. When you visit your pastures, nothing will be missing. Your children will be many, your descendants will be as plentiful as grass. You will live in a good old to a good old age. You will not be harvested until the proper time. We have found from experience that all this is true. Listen to my counsel and apply it to yourself. So, that's the end of those chapters. All right, so now I'm going to go back through and just as I'm pausing, I'm making little marks. So I'm just going to go back and just kind of talk about the things I noted, and you can do the same. All right. So in chapter 2, I put a mark here. It says, Satan replied to the Lord, skin for skin. He blesses you only because you bless him. A man will give up everything he has to save his life, but take away his health, and he will surely curse you to your face. Well, as someone who has dealt with health issues my whole life, and then especially even just in the last few years, heck, this last year in particular, uh, I fell off my bike, broke my wrist. That healed nicely. But then last month, I was riding that bike and got nailed by a freaking car. And so got like herniations in my discs, more herniations in my discs, and I'm suffering. And other issues too. Pretty sure I had a concussion. Um, and yeah, and I'm going through all this therapy, and it really sucks. And it really just feels like I'm being attacked. Uh, but in all that, you know, there are times where I'm like, dang it, like God, why, again, you know? But it only lasts for a moment, you know. And I try to always remember, well, you know what? I'm still saved. I still know God. I should have, and furthermore, I probably should have died in that car in that accident because that car hit my bike, and then I freaking like I slammed onto the top of the hood, and then the momentum pushed me out into the road, and I landed onto the road, and there was other cars coming eventually, but I was in so much pain I couldn't move myself, and they're all just looking at me. I was riding with a friend, and then there was two people in the car that hit me. They get out and they're just staring at me, and I'm laying in the middle of the road. They were in shock, and I was in shock. I couldn't move. But finally, and there was eventually just cars starting to like drive right past my head. It felt like. And I'm just like, because they couldn't see me because his car was kind of out in the road, and I'm kind of blocked somewhat by that car. It was just crazy, crazy scenario. But so I could have died, and I should have probably died. But God protected me. And I hear this friend of Job right now talking, and I hear some of the things he's saying are like true as I understand them, but then some things aren't. So let's dive into that. Okay, so we got a couple comments here. So the Lord wants us to be like Job, how he prayed, right? I'm trying to understand your question. Um, I don't know if I understand your question yet, Sonia. Maybe if you could rephrase that and ask me again, because I'm trying to think. Let's see, because when you say Job prayed, he kind of be more specific on that, because I'm not exactly sure what you meant on that. But I appreciate that question. Definitely want to understand and dive into that question. And as you are coming up, like rephrasing your question, I'm going to keep going here. Okay. So, anyways, this part where Satan knows how to get us, right? He attack one of the obviously we see here one of the ways he likes to attack us is through our health, and messing up our health. Even I think it was Paul mentioned he had a thorn in his flesh, and I don't know if it was. I don't think it was ever really specifically said that it was a physical problem, but I wonder if it was. Because that's how I have felt for a long time. This pain, these herniations in your discs. At one point, it was bad enough that I was ready to die. Like I was ready to take my own life if I had to, and if I couldn't find a way to get help, because it was just like living with a knife stuck in your back. You can only deal with that much pain for so long. And I went down to the depths of despair and like anguish and pain, and just couldn't function. I had to drop out of school. I couldn't go, to the store and shop. I had to ride one of those motorized carts. I didn't know if I was gonna be able to walk, and I was in, de- Satan has been after me, right? And that's what I believe, because there's just been way too much going on in that realm of my life for it to be some kind of coincidence. All right, so moving on. And one last note. Again, if you have issues, physical issues that you're dealing with, just know that if you know God, if you have everything. So don't worry. All right. So moving on. Verse 10. But Job replied, "You talk like a godless woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God, and never the bad things, and never the bad?" So yeah, basically perfect ending to all of that, because and I noticed in my last video that I did about Job, I mentioned prosperity gospel and how that's a thing, right? There's a lot of Christian sects of sex, like sects, um, denominations, whatever you call it, and their big thing is to talk about, well, basically always happy and prosperous stuff, and almost like, yeah, if you think you deserve this, God's going to give it to you. And yeah, there's some truth to that, but at the same time, it's like that's not why you should even really be a believer. That's not why you should be, most definitely not why you should become a believer. If your thing is that, oh, I'm going to become a believer because I really want to be rich, and or maybe you're already a believer and you think that you should be rich. Just know that you're worried about the wrong thing in life. You know, it's like you already have the prize. You already have the prize, which is salvation. You have all the wealth in the world, and everything else beyond that should just be like extra, right? Gravy. Don't make that the foundation of your faith is that you want this or that or the other thing. Just having salvation is the prize. Okay, so now moving on to verse 11. So it says, when Job's three friends heard about what happened, they they got together and they traveled to comfort and console him. Right? That's really cool. So they have the best intentions, you know. And this is really to. I think this teaches us that because we see, you know, any one of us watching right now, this watching this broadcast has had this happen where something as bad has happened to you in your life, and your friends they try to like console you. They have the best intentions, but they may not always know what to say, and their beliefs or whatever their opinions could be flawed, and that's what we see really here with his friends. And okay, and then moving on, it says, for 7 days and nights, right? They came. This is an important lesson too. For 7 days and nights, it says no one said a word. So his suffering was so bad. It's like they get to him and they're speechless. They're in awe. Like his suffering, he just looks like a pile of suffering, you know, and they're like so shocked. All they can do is just sit around him and maybe pray or just weep for him. But they don't even dare talk to him because he's just yeah. It reminded me of something. But anyways, chapter 3, verse. Wow, that's interesting. In chapter 3, by the second sentence, you're already in verse 3 somehow. That's weird. Verse 2 is he said. Anyways, it says, cursed be the day of my birth. So now, Job, so is this what you meant, Sonia, when you said prayed? You said how he prayed. I don't know if he's necessarily praying here or if he's just kind of, I think it sounds like he's more or less just complaining. Um, in his misery, he's kind of like complaining. So it says, cursed be the day of my birth, and cursed be the night when I was conceived. Let that day be turned into darkness. Let it be lost even to God on high. So yeah, typical deep depression sort of response. You start to wish you were never born. All right, and then verse 13, no, 14, it says, I would rest with the world's kings and prime ministers, famous for their great construction powers. I just found that interesting. I don't know why, but okay. They long. It says, verse 20. Oh, why should life be given to the weary, and life to those in misery? They long for death, and it won't come. Okay. Oh, so in chapter 5, it says in the first verse, it says, "You may cry for help." This is the response, the continued response from the first friend, Eliphaz. It says, "You may cry for help, but no one listens. You may turn to the angels, but they give you no help." And last time, I remember the guy's name, the little bit, the antagonistic kind of guy that we had here uh, for a couple days. He had a lot of questions. Um, and I think he mentioned about Catholicism and whether or not I believed in it. or what I thought about it. And I mentioned that, well, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but my thoughts about Catholicism is I never understood where they got off like praying to all these angels. And but here's a verse saying it says you may turn to the angels, but they give you no help. So even back then, you know, from why would he say that if there weren't people who were calling out to angels? Now, was that the right thing to do? I still don't know, but this verse is interesting in that regard, especially the part where it says they give you no help. Because I've always wondered, like, how does God feel about any sort of believer reaching out to angels before reaching out to Him? Anyways, moving on. But verse 6, but evil does not spring from the soil, and trouble does not sprout from the earth. And I was just thinking about this the other day, like when it comes to men were created from the earth, right? Adam was created from soil, basically clay, which I've always wondered, like, I've always assumed that, you know, because it's just earth, it's not like it doesn't corrupt itself, right? It's not evil. But after Adam and whoever else God may have created from the earth, after they are created, male and female, and now they're made in God's image, and I believe that that means that it could mean physically, but it also mean in kind of like in function. So He gave us the power to create life, right? Just like God can create life, but ours is like a codependent type of thing where we have to come together as male and female to do this. However, these this male and this female are not perfect. They're not like soil now because they've sinned. They have sin in their life. So two people come together and they create what? They create a perfect being. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me because people are born with all kinds of defects, physical, mental, whatever. We don't see that mentioned when it comes to the creation of Adam and Eve. They seem to be just fine, and so these issues, these birth defects, obviously started happening, after that point, and it makes you wonder if it's because, well, now we're two imperfect beings getting together, creating another being that, how can that be perfect? Because I hear a lot of Christians say, oh well, like with the issue of gayness, right? Oh well, God wouldn't create someone who's gay, right? And I used to think that too, because that was harped into me. And then my favorite aunt turned out to be a lesbian, and she died recently. And I had to go up and grab a bunch of her stuff, bring it down with me. And anyways, I remember she first told me that, and I was like so disappointed. Disappointed she didn't tell me. And I used to think that that was a choice. And then she would tell me, she's like, no, I never chose this. Like ever since I was a young girl, I always knew that I was like attracted to other women, and I'm just like, it's like, yeah, I mean, ever since I was a boy, I knew I was attracted to women. I definitely was not attracted to men. And it's just like, could it be possible? And so I wrestled with this for a long time. Like, could someone be born with with a propensity to be gay? And I finally come to the conclusion that sure, it must be possible, right? Because who would choose that, right? Like, unless they were maybe had influence or something from like some sort of demonic influence, perhaps, um, or just social even influence. But I mean, most people I know who are hardcore straight people, they don't have any sort of inclination to want to cross that line whatsoever. And then you have people that are born with all kinds of issues, physical or mental. And so it's like, okay, now is God responsible for that too? So I can't say that I know for sure the 100% the answer, but uh, I used to not think that you could be born that way, feeling that way, feeling gay. But now I'm not so sure because again, we're two people, imperfect people, creating a perfect person. I don't see how that works, but if you have an opinion, I'd love to hear it. All right, so moving on here. He gives prosperity to the poor and humble. All right, so next thing I had here was verse 11. He gives prosperity to the poor and humble, and he takes sufferers to safety. So this guy is saying like, okay, this is how God is. This is what He does. But sure, that's what God does, right? Like, but that's not always the case. Just because someone is a good person, right? They're humble doesn't mean that they're always, that they're like free from any kind of disaster or anything like that. Again, because if even if you're doing everything right, I think this is what the big message of Job is like Job was again upright, upright person. There's a verse in the Bible that says there's only a 1 in 1,000 men can be considered upright, and I think really that thousand is just a somewhat not necessarily an exact number. It's more of like a figure of speech kind of thing. That's what I think. I may be wrong, but I just think 1,000 was a big number back in that day, and so they say this, and it'd be almost like saying 1 in 1 million today or something. But if you just think about it, right? You just think about your life. How many people do you even run into who are truly upright? And I believe the definition of upright in here means basically just like high moral character, basically, just a really super good person, right? To put it simply. And those are hard to come by, because we all have our flaws and we all have our seasons in life. So even though a person might be upright today, maybe, something like Job happens to them and then they just lose all faith and they go into despair, and maybe that lasts for several years and then they finally snap out of it again. So point being is that there's not a lot of upright, truly upright people according to the Bible, right? Um, and so when you do find that one upright person, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be without troubles their whole life. In fact, if they are that really upright, the devil is going to be right there trying to do anything they can to change that. That's just the world we live in. We won't be free of that until we are in heaven or maybe the new earth. Okay. Verse 17, but consider the joy of those corrected by God. Do not despise the chastening of the Almighty when you sin. For though he wounds, he also bandages. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that seems pretty accurate. He strikes, but his hands also heal. He will rescue you again and again so that no evil can touch you. Okay, and then last thing, verse 23, you will be at peace with the stones of the field. and its wild animals will be at peace with you. Isn't that a strange thing? You'll be at peace with the stones of the field. None of us think today as of stones, or heck, even plants, as really being alive, or in the sense of especially stones. I mean, of course, we view plants as living, but a lot of people don't think that plants have, are just kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but basically just like, I don't know, soulless sort of personality, non-animated. But yet the Bible doesn't say that. Like it doesn't always say that. It talks about, right here. It says being at peace with the stones of the field, and it's wild animals to be at peace with you. Like, what is that? That is so mysterious. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's other spots in the Bible where it talks about, well, yeah, like who said it? Jesus or someone said, yeah, I can even make these stones, you know, worship me or something like that. So I don't know. Interesting stuff. That's why we study this, because it's just enlightening every time. And there's creates as many questions as it does answers, and that's the point. All right. So, and that's all for today. So Sonia, I don't know if you're still here, but I never got any more feedback from you on what you were trying to ask. But you can always email me. My email is in the comments section of all these videos and links to my Facebook pages. So you can contact me through any of those methods. Hey, I love to talk about the Bible and God and film. So, all right, guys, I gotta get going, but it's good to do this again, and I'll see you next time.